Yeah, folks, we are back. I'm your boy ALevel, South Bronx the finest, ALevel the flyest, South Bronx finest, ALevel the flyest in the building. Here with you on the second installment of In Full Effect with ALevel. As many of you may know, I have been on this journey for quite a while, over 11 years on the Out the Box Media platform, doing work with my good brother Krill. Shout out to Krill, by the way, and Talia Jim and others over at Out the Box Media. But I feel compelled to journey and go into something a little bit different than what I was doing previously. I am proud of the work that I've been doing there, and I will continue to do that work. You know, Out the Box is my home, but this is a journey that I'm continuing to do. So I just wanted to explain to you guys, In Full Effect is a term. I'm a 90s baby. I'm a golden era kid. And In Full Effect is a term from the New Jack Swing era. It really means to be at your best or in your element. And what the show is trying to do is to basically go deeper, a step deeper, whether you're an entertainer or you're in the sports, teacher, or anything else, a little bit deeper than what you normally do, and to get you while you're in your element and at your best. And that is my name, ALevel. So with that said, I know it's a little bit windy, but just had to give that to you guys. I just wanted to introduce you to my next guest on the show, which I am very honored that he is with us tonight. This brother is known for his brilliantly vibrant tenor voice. As noted by BroadwayWorld.com, he has been reviewed in both the New York Times and Opera News, and has been seen on stages in regional opera houses throughout the United States singing principal lyric and sprinto roles. His expertise on stage and ability to embody the character he plays puts him in a different category as a singing actor and not just a voice alone. He began his studies in his home state of Illinois before transferring to UNLV, where he received training in his voice with Dr. Alphonse Anderson, who opened his mind up to the possibility of being an opera singer. After graduating from UNLV, Mr. Wallace took a detour from operatic performance path, being that he is a multi-talented composer, arranger, instrumentalist, and music producer, engineer in various genres. Steve moved to New York City, where he worked with the plethora of local talent in the area, performed at all of the premier venues as a singer, songwriter, as well as working with Sony Music, Universal Records, MTV, and BET, gaining much exposure and becoming the go-to person for production, arrangement, and music direction, with bands leading him to be in the running for Grammy Award nominations in 2010. While teaching voice lessons at the Brooklyn Music School, Steve would sing arias between students or to demonstrate a technique. The head of the vocal department heard him and encouraged Mr. Wallace to become and to pursue a career in classical voice. This led Steve to begin singing for local coaches and auditioning for programs and regional companies in New York City. Making this move offered opportunities for singing recitals overseas, a role in Don Giovanni, with the Bronx Opera, and ultimately back to school for a master's in voice at DePaul University, where he studied the world-renowned tenor, Michael Sylvester. Since then, Steve is coached with Nathan Gunn, Derek Matson from the Lyric Opera of Chicago, as well as composers Thomas Pasitieri, premiering the song I Hear America Singing, and the Pulitzer Prize-winning Yehudi Weiner. He has also been directed on stages by Harry Silverstein and E. Lauren Meeker, and has subsequently performed with the Illinois Philharmonic Orchestra, the Skokie Valley Symphony, as well as roles in La Boheme, Rodolfo, La Traviata, Alfredo, Carmen Don Jose, and Cavaliera Rusticana Tiridu. I'm probably messing this up, y'all. I'm probably not, it's not even pronounced the way it's supposed to be pronounced. He has also had the chance of reviving H.L. Freeman's long-lost opera Voodoo in 2015 and performing the lead role in the U.S. premiere of the Filipino opera Noli Me Tangere by Philip de Leon, sung in Tagalog at the Harris Theater in Chicago in 2012. Steve presently resides in New York City with his lovely wife and beautiful daughter, where he lives as a composer, performer, and music director. Ladies and gentlemen, internets, podcasters, and podcastettes, please give a warm welcome, and I am honored to bring on our show today my brother, Mr. Steve Wallace, y'all. Come on in, Steve.
Yo, what's going on? wait, that bio was from where? Where was that bio from?
Yo, it was
Was it from
from
my opera website?
yeah, man. It's from
Okay.
Steve Wallace Tenor, Wixsite.com.
Oh yeah,
I'm sorry, man. Was
that's
that
all good.
a bit accurate or a little bit too much?
No, it's official. I mean, because I have because I do a lot of different things that I have different bios for different things. So
Right.
I have forgotten about that bio. So I'm listening to it. I'm like, oh, where'd he get that one from? So yeah, it makes sense. That's from my opera site. Yeah, that's for the opera heads.
Yo, man. Welcome to the show, brother, man.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. I'm glad you reached out. And anything for the brother. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
So just tell the people, who is Steve Wallace? I know they heard a long bio from me, man, but who is
Yeah.
Steve Wallace, brother?
Oh man. I think okay. So great question, right? I'm somebody that's into storytelling. Storytelling is really big for me. You know what I mean? So, um, and using the arts, I consider myself a creative person in storytelling. So it can come out in a lot of different ways. And I think when you peel back the layers of the onion, I like to use storytelling to inspire, to open people's minds up to things they may not have thought of before. Um, I also I don't believe in most delineations either. So I have a tendency to see connections in things that most people don't see connections in. You know, sounds and styles and experiences and stuff. Like even to a fault. Like sometimes I'll see myself in other people. Like not myself, but I'll see. Like I can see from somebody else's perspective. Like no matter how bad they've done something, you know what I mean? Like it's like yeah, I could see why they would have done that. And my wife was like, really? Like how? It'd be like these villains in movies and stuff like, yeah, well, I could see why they would have done that. She's like, no, they're evil. So, but I think what that does is it allows me to bridge gaps between people and cultures and ideas. So you're reading this whole opera bio, and people like I'm from the South Side of Chicago originally. I've been in New York for 20 some years, 20 years or so. I don't want to give too much of my age away, but yeah. So I came here when I was 3, obviously. Um, no, but uh, I and but the thing was like I got into opera and stuff and reading the whole opera bio, and I'm not really your traditional like opera person,
Right.
and and it kind of happened because I had a black opera professor in college at that I can talk about how we got there, but I didn't know I was going to be meaning that being a vocal major or studying voice in college meant that you were going to be an opera singer at the time. I didn't know that. And so I got thrown into this world of opera, but I started to like it because my professor would let me hear the stories. And so the narrative really drew me in. And I started to see the connection with narratives from around the world and things that were more directly related to me. And like I would watch an opera and I would see the drama they were going through, and I was like, oh, that's like it happened on my block the other day.
Right.
I
Right.
would be able to make that connection, Um, and I, you know, so I think that's most of it. It's the narrative, uh, it's the bridging of gaps between people and cultures and stuff.
So, I mean, you said you grew up in the South Side of Chicago, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What was that like? Growing up, in South Side Chicago. Talk to us about your humble beginnings. In your
Yeah.
home. You know,
Yeah. So growing, what was that like? So here's the thing. So okay, here's the disclaimer. For anybody that's watching this that's from Chicago, they would probably argue with me and say I'm not really from Chicago.
right,
It's like somebody from Mount Vernon saying they're from the Bronx or something, maybe.
right.
But no, but it's more in reality. I was born in the South Side, and I lived there until I was about, because people have these horror stories about the South Side, right? I lived there until I was about 10, turning 11, and I moved to the south suburbs of Chicago. Um, and so South Side of Chicago, 100% black. Like, dude pulled a knife on me when I was 9. Like, that stuff was happening, and it was like, it is what it is, right? Um, but when I moved this, I mean, it's one of the reasons why my parents moved out to the south suburbs, which was like, when I moved out there, it was 90% white, and I actually watched it change
Wow.
from, like by the time I graduated high school, so from like 11 to 17, 18, it was then like 75% black, which was so fascinating. And I had friends like that moved away immediately, like after they graduated high school and stuff. So that's a whole nother discussion. But the experience was for me, um, was I was pretty, I was kind of sheltered. You know what I mean? My parents really protected me. I was the youngest in the family. My older brother was he got the brunt of it. Like the Chicago experience. I think my sister um, got some of it as well. But my parents were really conscious of trying to keep us from certain elements. If you understand.
Right.
But in the midst of all of that, I mean, I had some great time. I had great times, met some good friends. I actually got involved in studying music more deeply because of being in Chicago. There was this music program called the Merit School of Music that I that I got into as a tuition free student when I was 9 years old when I got there. And I stayed there from 9 to 18, and I learned like all this like music theory, ear training. I did vocal training. I was singing in like 3 languages when I was 12,
Wow.
11 maybe. So went to music camp, like all that stuff. I mean, prior to that though, but my music experience was mostly church. We grew
Right.
up in a CME church on the south side called St. Paul CME Church. I sang in the church, the children's choir there, and sang solos and stuff, and so that's kind of the beginning of it all, you know.
I mean, sounds like you're a classically trained musician, from in
Yeah.
all those things. I mean, you're well versed, man. I mean, what made you decide to want to pursue music and said, "Hey, I'm gonna do music. I'm not gonna do anything else. This is what I
Yeah.
want to do."
So the funny thing, we asked that question. The funny thing is, everyone thought I was going to be like a graphic designer or a visual artist, which I do. I still draw. I'll show you. I'm not showing you a weird finger. I am though. But see, that is a knot on my finger right there. That knot is because I used to draw so much. I have this eternal knot on my finger, just from
Wow.
drawing. I'm like, but the thing was, so even from like very young, like, oh man, like 4, 5, 6, like from that age, I drew. I would draw so much that people would forget I was there. Like as a kid, like you got kids, and maybe I don't know how they are, but I know my daughter, she's like she wants our attention like
Oh
most of the
yeah.
time,
Oh yeah.
right? And every now and then she kind of get in that zone where she's coloring or she's doing something, and then she'll be in her own zone, but she'll still be like, "Oh, Daddy, check this out" or whatever. I was the type of kid, I'd be in the corner in the room drawing, and no one hears from me, no one knows what's going on.
So you were like introverted, you know.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, I still am introverted. I get my energy like So being like that's why I'm a studio rat too. So like when I create, so it was the thing. It was like to be a creative place and just kind of being in it with my own creativity and like coming up with different things or whatever. So what I realized is that I only like drawing comic books, and I wanted to draw superheroes and comic books, and that was it. But with music, as I came up and I was singing in church choirs, but then I got exposed to hearing like Beethoven in piano class, and then I took music lessons at school, and I was just fascinated by music theory. I was fascinated by different instruments. I was fascinated by other singing in other languages, and like being raised up around hip hop, R&B, gospel, house music. Hearing all of that around me too, jazz. I just like loved all of it and wanted to know as much as I possibly could about like everything in
Mhm.
music. Like when I heard, I'll never forget when I heard Take Six in like middle school, and I was just like, what is happening to my
Yeah.
brain? And I found out that all the guys had like degrees in music, and some of them had master's degrees in music. And I said, okay, if I want to be as good as them, I need to get a degree in music. So that's what kind of cued me into that. So when I was in high school, I spoke to my parents and said, "Hey, I think I want to." I had been telling them I wanted to do graphic design for forever, and I said, I think I want to do music as a major, and I was pretty scared. I thought they were going to say, "Absolutely not! You'll never make money doing that, and please don't say anything ever again."
I was about to ask you, how did that go?
Yeah, it was well. It changed from so it may have been an upgrade because I was at one point I was like I don't want to go to college. So I had the singing group in high school, and we were pretty good. Like we were like on this boys to men type vibe and stuff, and we were taking meetings at Jive Records, and had an offer from a record label and stuff, and so I thought I really wanted to focus on doing that at the time. And I told my parents, I was like, yeah, I just want to, not go to college and just focus on the group and trying to get a solid deal and stuff. And my mom said, okay, you can do that if you want, but if you still living here, you gotta get a job.
Right.
And I said, I was smart enough to know that that meant I had to work at McDonald's basically. And I was like, I ain't trying to work at McDonald's. I was like, all right, so we'll come back in the summers. Like I'll go to college and come back in the summer and I'll catch up with them then. So, but so when I told them I want to major in music, they just looked at me and they were like, okay. I
Yeah.
was like, that's it? They're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And we get it. We understand. I was like, okay. And so they supported me. I was really grateful. I'm grateful to my brother and sister too because they kind of prepared them too, in a way, because I'm the baby in the family. So when I came around, they were a little in a different place. So they were like, "Yeah, go for it."
So were you just like the good kid, and your older siblings,
Mm,
they were just kind of like they drained your parents, so by the time they got to you, they were more.
that's what they would say. That's what they would say. They were like, "Well, I was a surprise baby." My parents thought they were done with the two. They
Okay.
had a boy, they had a girl. They were like, okay, we're done. They had hit 40. Well, my mom was 39,
Okay.
and my dad was like 40 or 41. And then it was all of a sudden like, oh, we got a kid coming. And like, what? So, so my brother was when I was like 5, my brother was going to college. My sister. I won't give my sister's age away because people watching this might know my sister, so I won't give her age away. But yeah, so it was a significant difference. I mean, enough for me to kind of almost see them as a second set of like parents, kind of.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I mean, I just want to talk a little bit about your ethnicity. Not that it matters, but
Oh, it matters.
I mean, can
It
you
matters.
talk about that a little bit? Like, what's the background?
Yeah, yeah. I'm a Black American, African American. I do, and then so here's the thing, and that's interesting you bring that question up. I know you from the BX, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So in Chicago, if your parents were not like from if your parents were like not from another country and you had brown and you were brown and somewhat similar to how I look, you were black. It was just
Right.
that's it. There was no like I Dominican, Puerto Rican, whatever. You're black.
Right.
You go, you're Spanish black or whatever, however they would be said. But for the most part, like I have friends that, in hindsight, after living in New York, I go back and say, "Oh, he was Jamaican," you know what I mean? Or, "Oh, she was Haitian," you know, or, "Oh,
Yeah.
she was from Nigeria," you know what I
Black
mean?
is
Like,
me.
we just black, we black, you know. So now, so in hindsight, after like as I got older and became more aware of myself, and knowing that I needed to know about myself, I found out that my grandfather's father was from Jamaica.
Mm.
So, and then when I told people that when I was in New York and I was living in Brooklyn at the time, I was like, "Oh, you're Jamaican then," you know. So, but yeah. So I mean, I found that out when I was fully an adult. But yeah,
I mean,
African American.
I say that because I know typically I'm from the Bronx,
Mm-hmm.
you know, but my ethnicity, we're black people from Belize,
Yeah.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
and Belize is in the Caribbean, and the Caribbean families, they think differently. So
Yeah.
when you
Yeah. Sure.
come from the Caribbean, your whole thing is about getting a job, you get married, you find a home,
Mm-hmm.
you take care of your family, and you look forward to retirement, you
Yeah.
know. So from their upbringings, everything was just poverty. So when they came here and they came to America to get that piece of American pie, like
Right.
so many families do, your only focus is, the land of milk and honey, and milk and honey only looks as though getting a job, getting a career that earns this amount of money, and you're supposed to be content with that. So now imagine someone like myself who is coming up and taking a liking to music and
Yeah.
entertainment, and this is what
Right.
I want to do. And then I come to them and say, "Hey, mom and dad, I don't want to be a doctor. I don't want to be a nurse. I don't want to be
Yeah.
none of this stuff.
Right.
I want to do music." And they're looking at me like, "Why you're crazy?" You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
all this other
Exactly.
stuff. So
Right.
and I admire you so much because you're my hero, bro.
Oh,
You know,
really?
you're my hero, bro. I mean, for those who are just going up to this stuff, because it's an uphill battle.
Yeah.
It's an uphill battle. This is not a regular career like everyone, trying to pursue.
Yeah.
And for you to be making it, you're married, you're a family man, and still pursuing a career, not pursuing, you're in the career. You're actually in the fruits of it. I mean, EMI songwriting, you're living the dream. So that just gives me, and I just hope everyone else that's watching this, just so much hope, So I give kudos to you for that. I
Thanks, man.
just if you could just explain to us what that road was like, you know.
Yeah. Um. I there's a lot of figuring it out on the way. You know what I mean? I think the and I'm bringing up a scripture because the real key of it is this the spiritual foundation.
Mm,
You know what I'm saying? Trust in the Lord in all your with all your heart, and in all your ways acknowledge Him. He'll direct your path. So I think one of the things for me that was really important was that every step I took, I I was in consultation with God. You know what I mean? Like, and I think within that too, like I've the sense of like understanding myself too within the context of that relationship with God, and getting to know who I was and who God created me to be was really important. And I'm still on that journey, but I feel like I have a better understanding of seeing who I really am, beyond all the other stuff. Like, oh yeah, I make music or whatever, I create things. Beyond all that, like who the core nugget of a human being is. You know what I mean? But yeah, so I think that that's really what made it happen for me. Being and in that knowing what the spirit of the law, not the letter of the law, is, because what I mean is like you have these dreams and these visions and like the dreams to do attain something, but that oftentimes we place this sort of this thing that we create that we think will help to attain that core spiritual idea that we want to accomplish. You know
Right.
what I mean? So we think, oh, it's got to be done like this.
Right.
You know what I mean? And oftentimes it has nothing to do with that other stuff. Like those other layers has nothing to do with that. It has to do with the core of who you are, and that could come out like in a million different ways. So, um, yeah. So like for example, like if we just talk about like the group that I had in high school, I had it set in my mind, this we gonna make it, we gonna be like Voice the Man, blah blah blah, you know what I mean? Um, but what was the thing that that my soul was really yearning to do in there? And you know what I'm saying? So like, okay, so when I go back to that and think about that, then that's part of the journey, as opposed to getting wrapped up in, okay, that group, it broke up, we didn't make it, or whatever. That's not the point. That's not the point. What was that helping to build for me, so I'm prepared to do what I'm able to do today? You know.
Right.
So for example, if I'm writing an opera now, my string arrangements that I make are totally based on my time working with my group in high school, because how we would stack harmonies was the same way as how I'm thinking about, okay, the viola's doing this, the cello's doing that, they should move in contrary motion, blah blah blah, all that stuff came from,
Wow.
you know what I mean. um so and also it's like being very, you got to be very tenacious, and we got to be tenacious about the right things. And so that's why it's really important to have that core of what it is that you're trying to accomplish, like sort of a self mission statement, to make that happen.
Yeah. So so I guess, and another thing I admire you for is this kind of career that you're pursuing, in opera. You know,
Mm-hmm.
most people think, everything, we're just gonna go into hip hop and R&B, and even though we love those things, I'm like, for the
Yeah.
fact that you from the hood, from the same places and everything like that,
Sort of from the,
I get it, I get it, you
but
know,
yeah, from a black
but
experience for
yeah,
sure.
most people assume that we're not gonna go into opera when we have actually a deep history in opera.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure.
You just don't see it that often.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's, part of it was exposure for me. I mean, I was exposed to classical music very young. I heard Beethoven when I was 6, because I was taking piano lessons. My sister was playing Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, so I was exposed to it then, as well as, I was really young. I used to listen to the Wiz soundtrack that was produced by Quincy Jones, like every day. I used to listen to it every day on my own. On my own. Reason why I bring that up is because if you really know music and you listen to that soundtrack, is aspects of almost every genre in that film. There's stuff from classical music that I found out later in college that he just took from Stravinsky and whatever, and just kind of, mixed it in. But so my exposure to classical music, I guess because maybe the way I was wired too, I actually would see connections from that to like the gospel music I was hearing at church, or like R&B songs that I would hear, like my brother and sister would play, or. So I didn't really see that much of a difference between things. I would recognize things that spoke to me and be like, "Ooh, what is that? Why do I like that?" But the big turning point was Dr. Alphonse Anderson at UNLV. So when I came in to audition at UNLV, I sang a couple of songs I knew in other languages that I learned at Merritt in Chicago, and then I sang something from the Wiz. All the stuff makes sense. And they were like, oh, the other like white professors were like, oh, he probably is more of a gospel-y type singer. And he, being like the only black man there, was like, no, he can actually sing classical music. I could hear it. He can do this. So don't give me that other black folks sing gospel stuff. You know what I mean? So so he pulled for me. I ended up getting a scholarship to go there, and I studied with him. He used to call my house like I don't know, like maybe every day, and would talk to my parents to say, is Stephen coming here? Is he gonna come here? So I went there, and then he opened me up to this whole classical music world and opera singing, and he would sing me this stuff and play me records, and I was like, this stuff's actually kind of cool. And again, to flip it to today, like when I've taught music lessons, And this would be like straight up like I'm making a hip hop beat making class.
Right.
I'll play them something. I'll get them to a point where we're prepared to hear like a scene from Carmen or something. And I can get them, and I can lure them in because of the story, because we're story people. You know what I mean? So when you hear the story, like, yeah, he's trying to get with her, but she ain't feeling that, and
Right.
she like this other dude, and then then his mom was like, you gotta be with her, and when you tell it like that, and then they see it, they could be listening to a whole nother language, and they'd be like,
Right.
yo, he played her dirty, son. Like and they get it because it's about the narrative. So that's what drew me in as well, and then that got me in a position to want to start to create things like that, because I was like, well, I realized that writing an opera was like, it's a bunch of songs that's tied together with a storyline. So I was like, well, let me do that. I've written like 100 songs or so, so I can do this.
Which makes it so interesting because you mentioned earlier, your whole reason for getting into this is the storytelling.
Yeah.
And opera is storytelling.
Yeah.
It doesn't really get any better than that.
Yeah, that's debatable. We could debate that.
What's the,
I'm,
go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I just say the origins of it all. I mean, when these guys it was like the Florentine Camerata in like 1490 something. They got these Italian dudes. They saw Greek dramas, and Greek dramas were pretty popular. But it also used to do these big things called the intermezzo, which was it kind of means in between, sort of, or something like that. And so what it was is it was these stage events that would happen like oftentimes in like a big mall or something, and it would have acting in it and singing in it and dancing in it and costumes and all types of stuff, but nothing was connected. It was it was like a free for all, like big extravaganza. And then these dudes were like, why don't we create like a Greek drama but like sing it,
Right.
because we have the music, and then you have the visual art from the costumes and the sets, and then you have all art in this one big operation. And that's what operation became opera. That's what the word operation comes from. And that's all it was. The telling. So I think it happens in a lot of different ways throughout history, and just I don't know, whatever. So back then they called it opera. Now they call it whatever.
Okay.
Musicals, movies, TV.
Give us one fun fact about Steve Wallace.
I used to eat pizza every Saturday, like a frozen pizza, like every Saturday when I was growing up.
Frozen pizza every
Yeah, like every Saturday.
every Saturday.
And it started off because my parents would order, like, on Saturday is my day for my mom not to cook. So it would be like she would order fish, or they would order Chinese or something like that. And I didn't like fish or Chinese. And so they're like, okay, Steven, there's a frozen pizza in the freezer. Go ahead and eat that. It's probably the youngest child thing. They're like, go ahead, just do that. And so it became like a tradition. Like every Saturday, it was like I'm eating a frozen pizza.
Really? What type of frozen pizza, man?
It could kind of be anything, but it could be like the store brand, and it could be like the Tombstones with Tombstones. That was like the joint for a while, and then like the Red Barons. Like I know these, I know these names. And yeah, so for any frozen pizza. Oftentimes with toppings, and oftentimes it was like the supreme pizza too. It had, like, with the variety of toppings and stuff.
So it had the Sicilian joints. You had the
Nah, Chicago didn't have all that, man. That's New York. If you go like real deep with Chicago pizza versus New York pizza, I mean, they have like kind of your standard
That's
sort
right.
of flat pizza, but it was cut into squares
Because
in
that's where
Chicago.
Uno's comes from anyway, though, right?
Yeah, yeah. So you're talking about like the deep dish, like, yeah. I heard a guy from New York, a comedian from New York, say one time that uh, people Chicagoans like their pizza because they gives them an excuse to eat lasagna with their hands. That's what they say. The deep dish pizza.
Yo, man. So let's talk about Hal King, man, and what inspired that.
Yeah, yeah. It's it comes from like the other stuff I was talking about before, like being able to kind of connect. I wa- I, I wanted. Okay, so there's two things, right? One of the things was is me and my friends in college, like the other opera singer friends. 'Cause I had a black opera professor, and he drew other black singers from other schools and stuff. And people come to study with him. So we were, at a majority white institution, but it was kind of wild how black the opera department was. It was like probably about 10 of us like rolling deep in that joint. And good singers too, some really good singers. Some people that are like singing Broadway stuff, and people that are still like working on music and putting out stuff, other professors and stuff now. But so we used to mess around with like opera songs, so to speak, which are called arias or parts from operas, and sing them like R&B singers. You know what I mean? And um, or we would comment on sections of operas that sounded really soulful. You know what I mean? Because there are parts that's like, oh, like like soulful music, you feel it. You know what I mean? Like there's certain like chord progressions, certain melodies and stuff, how it's done, and so it kind of was birthed there, I believe, and years later, I had been thinking about as I was doing a lot of indie soul stuff throughout the early 2000s. Really, basically started like 2005. I put out my first album, and I was doing a lot of like soul, like neo soul type stuff, and working with some hip hop artists and stuff. And I was experimenting a lot, but I kind of wanted to be like certain other people, right? And I got to this point in my maturity where I was like, okay, I want to do something like this not there, and something that was very particular to me and my experience, because I was finding a lot. Because I used to do these concerts where I would do like part of it would be like a soul concert, and part of it would be a classical concert. And so people that came to those shows were like, "Wow, I never seen anybody like switch quite as drastically as you did within one show." And I was like, "Well, that's something special that I do, but I don't know if I want to do that per se." So, what would be something that would really both respect and honor both those aspects of myself within one thing? Like, what would that be? And so that was in the back of my head. And I had a dream. I had a dream one night. I was single before I was married, so it had to been like maybe 2007. I got married in '08, so early '08 or something like that. I had this dream. I woke up, and in the dream it was Usher Raymond, the R&B singer, and he had on a this what they call a poet shirt, in like opera, like 19th century poet shirt, and looks very like kind of Shakespearean, which is not from the 19th century, it's from way before, but Romeo and Juliet vibes. But he had on jeans and Tims, and he was running in a battlefield, and I was like, what was that? And
Right.
then at the same time, I was like, I get it. I immediately got it. So I felt like God brought me that dream, and I just went like just starting to figure out how to create that. So that was the origin of it. And I also, because the Wiz was a big part of my early kind of formations of creativity and music and that type of thing, I wanted to create something that represented black culture, and that had all of these great black artists in one place. And I'm fascinated by the idea of a variety of artists being brought together into under one goal, and creating something world shattering.
Right.
So that's where the impetus for Hal King was.
Yeah, I mean, it's a star-studded cast, so to speak. I mean, we got my
Yeah.
my good brothers, we know Ryan Shaw in there,
Yes, sir.
my girl Stephanie Farmer, and a few
Yeah.
other
Oh, she was
people.
in here too. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
right.
A lot of our church family is in there.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm
Yeah, for
saying?
sure.
That's what I really loved about it. That's dope.
Yeah.
Eric Roberson,
Yeah.
a lot of soulful people.
Yeah.
SJ.
Mm-hmm. Oh, SJ.
Yeah, man, it's such a small world, bro.
Okay.
I studied at BronxNet with his dad, Sam Jackson.
Oh,
Yeah,
interesting. Okay, okay.
yeah. I studied field production and studio production.
Gotcha,
You know,
gotcha.
so and he actually came in as one of his dad's projects, and he actually sung. So it's just funny
Okay.
how we meet years later,
Uh-huh.
in the same umbrella. You know
Yeah,
what I'm
yeah, it's
saying?
crazy. Yeah, all those people were all a part of this. I mean, there was this time when, sort of if it's with lack of a better term. So there was, so after there was Common's album Electric Circus, which was sort of like we are, and also the Roots album Phrenology,
Okay, good.
and those two albums were like the death of neo soul. Okay, and neo soul was this thing where there was this kind of this, people know what it is, but
Right,
the idea was that it was going back to, the classic R&B of the 70s and grabbing a lot of vibes from there, but still making it feel very modern, and there was a point when it was getting really popular, and then the people that were like the leaders in that particular movement were like, hands off, it's too popular for us, you
right,
know and even when that happened, there were tons of other artists that were coming out, like a Glenn Lewis, or like Bilal was kind of like at the end of that,
right,
that kind of caught the tail end of it, but it was sort of fizzling out in the popular media. So there was a lot of artists that were inspired by those artists, like the D'Angelos, the Maxwells, or whatever, Jill Scotts and Erica Badu's, that wanted to still create something like that and pay homage to that kind of that special time during the like 70s, but also bring like something new with it as well. And that kind of became this indie soul movement that happened. New York was a big part of it. I'd say that Atlanta was a big part of it. I'd say that there's probably some of it happening in LA too, which Ledisi was part of that too, when she came up through those ranks. Eric Roberson, there's some other names I probably can't think of right now, but um, and yeah, so when I came to New York and I got involved, with that scene, I saw a lot of open arms, like, hey, we love what you're doing, come here and perform over here, sing here, and play with this person, produce this person, blah blah. So that a lot of that was happening, and I was just like, oh, this is great that I can create the stuff that I really love, that I've always was inspired by, and people are appreciating it. And in the midst of doing that, I met like everybody and sang with everybody, and we're on stage with all type of people. So a lot of those people are in the film, and we all have been on stages and stuff together. Like me and Eric, I've worked with him a few times before. Of course, Ryan, we went to church together and everything,
right.
and he was doing his own thing as well. Like, met SJ through that, met Angela Arnold through that, met Darian Dean, Sophia Nicole's in the movie too. So like, yeah, so that was a big, there's tons of talent out there, as we both know, that
Mhm,
people have maybe or maybe not have heard of,
mhm.
and they just need the moment to be seen and heard, for people like, wow, where have you been? It's overnight success. It's like, nah, I've been here. I've been doing this for 40 years, bro. You know what I mean? So yes, I was glad to be able to do something where people could all kind of come together with their brilliance and create something like this.
Well, it came together great, man. How long did it take to put this whole thing together? Explain the length of the journey here?
Yeah, yeah. So, like I said, I had the dream in probably 2007, or early 2008. And then I started putting pen to paper. Well, I started meeting with some friends to see who would be interested. Because though I do write everything, I didn't want to write everything, meaning lyrics, text, that type of stuff. Because when you go to the operatic tradition, like Verdi, who's considered one of the greatest opera composers of all time, or Mozart would collaborate with someone who focused just on the text. You know what I
Mm,
mean? They didn't write there was only a couple of opera composers that did both. Um, so I wanted to approach it like that because I really wanted to be true to the art form of opera, and I also wanted to be true to like R&B and hip hop, and the Black experience, the Black American experience too. So So I was like, okay, who would be the equivalent of a librettist? Is what they call them, like a librettist in in my circles in the hip hop R&B world. So I reached out to some people. I had a friend who was a poet, but also had written plays and screenplays and stuff like that. And so I reached out to her. I reached out someone else I know that created the story. I feel like I'm telling this a little out of order, but so the first person I reached out to was a friend of mine who was really good at adapting stories. Jaws on the House, Lee McLaughlin, and she um, had this great idea to take King Henry IV by Shakespeare and the Fifth and adapt it to like a modern setting. So when I spoke to her about it, I just kind of told her, okay, these are like the pillars I want. This is what I want to happen in the story, and I want to take something that's very classical, like European classical, but modernize it into a Black context. So what do you think? And she was like, oh, okay. Well, hey, you know about King Henry IV? I was like, yeah, yeah. So she adapted and put things in place within that structure. And then I was like, hey, can this happen here and that can happen there, blah, blah, blah. And I want this to happen. And boom. Wow. She was like, cool. And then she weaved all that in there. And then I took that story from her to someone else who was a playwright and wrote screenplays. And she also was a poet. And so I told her, I said, I want you to write dialogue that sort of rhymes, you know, but not like on purpose. You know what I mean?
Right.
And she was like, huh? I was like, nah, just don't worry about it. Just do that. Send it to me. I'll let you know if it's on track. So she would write a few pages and stuff and email it to me. She was at a like desk job and stuff. And like I was talking to her, like, yo, what you got for me today? And she would send me some stuff. And I was like, yeah, this is it. To keep going, keep going, keep going. And so she just wrote a whole screenplay based on the story that the first person did with these kind of, you know, rules that I gave her, you know, and I took that from her. And so I went through and I made all these marks and like cut stuff out. And then I found spots where people needed to have an internal dialogue. Right. And those were like the spots for arias, like when someone just is alone and they're kind of thinking about, because a lot of times arias and operas, or like if you go to a musical and people sing a song.
I'm sorry, what is an aria, by the way?
Okay, good. Thanks for asking the question. So an aria is essentially a solo song in an opera. And usually nobody else on stage, or if there is, it's like one or two other people that they specifically talk to. So it's a solo. But the idea of the aria, it comes from the word air. So if you like read Shakespeare and stuff, there's like, you'll say air, or it's like putting on airs. And I kind of analyze that to be, okay, it's that person's mood or vibe that they're in that moment. And you stop the action for a second so we can kind of explore that mood and vibe.
Right. Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So if you've been to a musical before, it happens all the time. You know, time is not moving, or it's moving in a different way. And we're just focusing on this one character and how they're feeling about, you know, a whole new world or whatever they say, you know, or a part of your world from Little Mermaid or whatever.
Yeah, we see it all the time. We just don't know how to define it. You know what I'm saying? I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it's a solo. That's what it is. Here's the thing: people get put off by like classical music and opera a lot, and it's mostly because of language. And if you translate this stuff in the original languages, it just means regular stuff that we say all the time. You know. So if I were to translate Aria, it'd be like vibes. You know what I mean? And then it's like, oh yeah, this is the person's vibes in that moment. It's all it is. So anyway, I found those places in this screenplay where this particular character was like, something emotional happened and we have to unpack what's going on in their brain and in their soul or whatever. And so I stopped there and I took it to another poet, a cat named J. Ivy, who worked with Kanye, worked with Jay-Z. He's a friend of mine. I started off actually at Illinois State University before I went to UNLV. So that's where I met Dr. Anderson, but he also went to Illinois State. And I met him there as a poet. And I saw him again when I was in New York. I was like, yo, what's up, bro? And so we just, you know, we would vibe together and stuff. And so I reached out to him. I was like, bro, I need you to write me some lyrics for this particular emotion. And this is what happened to the character before. This is where the character is going after. Just write me a poem for that. He was like, Yeah, all right, cool. So he wrote some stuff for me and sent it to me, and then after I had all the text for like all those sections that he wrote and that the screenplay writer wrote, and then put it all together, edited. I just started setting everything to music from beginning to end.
I mean, I'm looking at this story and it's dealing with Hal,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Right.
it's so relative to so many of us, that just go out. I mean, it's the typical prodigal son kind of
Yes.
situation going
That's what my
on,
mom said too.
where he's
Mm-hmm.
just young and dumb and he just does what he wants to do. Everything is
Yeah.
motivated by his emotions, his flesh, and what he's feeling. And I'm going
Exactly.
to do what I feel, Dad. I don't care who
Right.
you are and what you want me to become. And I can relate to that. You just
Yeah.
go out there and then all of a sudden you come back and that scene where
No spoilers.
oh, yikes.
You could talk in generalities though.
Right.
You
But
can talk
just
in generalities.
when he eventually just gets it together, and then I'm not gonna say anymore. I'm not gonna say anymore just because I'm gonna spoil it.
You mean when he? Okay, now we can talk about the war, right? So we
Yeah,
won't say what happened in the war. So he was drafted to the Korean War.
right.
So it's just right. So Hal is at the beginning is like drinking, smoking, whatever. He's at the jazz club. He's kicking it. He's like, life is whatever I want it to be. And him and his girl are like, yeah, we're gonna go to Paris and we're gonna live it up. And you're gonna be a singer. I'm gonna be a poet. And his dad is like, what are you doing with your life? And
Right.
he's a local community leader and a local politician. And people looking at him like, yeah, but what about your son? And you talking all this like build the community, but look at your son. You can't take
Right.
care of your whole family.
Right.
So after he some tragedy happens, things happen in his life, things change, and he's drafted into the Korean War. And when he's in the Korean War, he has to grow up, you know. And so by the time he comes home, um, he's in a different position. So he's in a place where now he has to step up, and he sees life differently now because he had to be a leader in the war. He had to save people's lives and had to see things he didn't want to see, and you know, yeah, that's the journey. It's the coming of age.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, just wonder why. I mean, I guess it's a rhetorical question. You and I both know the answer to that, but as to why it's just the human spirit that we just have to kind of go out and do dumb things before we actually, turn around and do things the right way.
Yeah, there's a older wise man once said to me, at the cost of, what did he say? It's the cost of experience is dear, and fools learn by no other.
Mm.
The cost of experience is dear, and fools learn by no other. Yeah, the thing is like a lot of times, especially with the Hal King situation, which we oftentimes see in the church, with like the preacher's kid. You know what I mean? It's you have this prominent parent that's so respected and in front of everyone and doing the right thing or supposedly doing the right thing or whatever, and the kid, if that relationship needs to be really nurtured so well, and in a way where there's a great, that just, with such care, um, that the child feels comfortable being themselves within the relationship. So I think that what happens with Hal and his father, because he's such a prominent person and so respected, and this happens between siblings too. Like if you have an older sibling that's like very successful or whatever, does something, no one wants to be in the shadow or have to feel like they're forced to go in a certain direction because
Right.
of what someone else in their family is doing. You know what I mean? And what people tend to do in those situations, in order to stoop for defining themselves, is they rebel. They go the opposite direction. You know what I'm saying? Because I got to be me on my terms. You know,
Right.
especially at those points where you're like, you have to, when you start growing up and feeling yourself. As the New Yorkers would say. Like like yeah, he's feeling himself right now. But like in a sense, like okay, I know I'm growing up and I'm becoming a man now. I'm a man now, Dad. I don't need you. That type of stuff. So, um, and I think that's what he went through. I think A lot of us go through that. Like we have to figure out who we are by ourselves, apart from our family foundation. You know.
I saw that you and your wife, you added your wife as executive producer for the film as well, too, man. Um, I mean, you guys have been married how many years?
It'll be 13 this year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Praise the Lord for you guys, man, with that.
Yeah.
What feeling is that? I mean, for you to be able to have a wife that supports you on your dreams and what
Yeah.
you want to do. How important was that for you in this entire
Man,
process? You know,
it I can't even really put into words. And I would say first of all that this film would not have been done without my wife, like literally. And I'm not just saying that like one of those things that, you know, the guy's getting his award on stage is like, I'd like to think my wife it wouldn't have been done without her and her care for me. Nah, I'm talking about literally and physically. Like this film would not have been done if it not wasn't for my wife. I was at a point in the middle of filming this film, this Hal King, and I was just like, I have no idea how this is going to happen now. We were out of money and we were over budget and and people were looking for more money for people we had to pay. And I'm like, and we
right.
got a whole half of the film still yet to do. And so she was like, okay, we're in too deep now. Let's go. That's what we got to do. And she just was in, you know what I mean? And she's so good at budgeting. This is one of the reasons why I married her too, is because she's so good at knowing how to make things happen in a great way without spending a lot of money. So she was able to bring those skills in to the film and be like, okay, if we do this here, it's like we won't go there film. We go here. I have a friend to do that. Don't you know somebody that does this? Yeah, okay. And we started putting those dots together and say, okay, we could pay this from here and do this over here and move that. And then I was like, this is fantastic. So that's why her name is on there.
Shout
It
out to
couldn't have.
Mrs. Wallace, by the way.
Yeah. She made Hal King happen, man, for real. I mean, definitely. And I can say too, also at the beginning of it when I was writing it, she was really, really supportive of it. She likes musicals, you know. She's not like into it, but she like, you know, she's not like a musical head, but she likes them. So when I played her the music, she was like, "Oh wow, like I can see what's happening." This before it was any type of visuals at all. It was just the music. She's like, "I can see what's happening. It's like I can see the dramatic scene and the characters how they interact. Like she's running down the hall and the music sounds like this." And she was picking up on all that. She was like, this is some of your best. This is your best work." This was back in like 2009 or something.
So she saw that.
And she's like,
Wow.
"This is your best work. I whatever you know." So she was very supportive of me moving forward on it, um, and she's often my voice of reason, especially as an artist. We dream a lot, and we're like, "I see this becoming," and she's like, "Okay, hold on." And we paying for this how? Wait, what's happening?
Right,
You
right.
know, so yeah, I'm very grateful for my wife. It's really important. You know, I often tell people that a a good wife, I mean, not a wife, a woman can make or break your life. You know what I mean? Like, you know, it can boost you like 500 million%, or it could totally destroy you. So you got to be real careful about like who you choose
The
to be
Samson
that
and Delilah
person.
situations, all that, that
Yeah,
make or break you,
yeah.
I mean, that they don't call your wife, God doesn't refer to as your rib, for no reason.
Yeah,
She
man.
supports you, you know.
At your rib cage, it protects all of your like vitals, bro. You know, like your heart and your lungs, like your air and your heart is protected by your ribs.
My rib protects me. Love you, honey.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what is your? I mean, you a beat maker, man.
Yeah.
So, what is your weapon of choice? You know what I'm saying? What's your favorite machine to make beats on?
Yeah. So I started off with computer programs when I was in undergrad. And once I realized, like, I used to have a computer program. it was actually a classical music scoring program that you could attach uh, um, um, like a sound module to, and it would play back whatever you put in. And then I realized that the sound module had some dope drums on it. You know, like the other classical kids weren't going into that. And so I was like, oh, they got some drums in here. And so then I started like making beats on this program. It was called Quick Score Elite.
Hmm.
And so that's what I started with. So my whole concept of making beats started from that. Later on, I had my own version of Quick Score Elite and had some couple of sound modules and stuff like that. Then I got a job at Sony Studios, and that's the first time I actually got my hands on things like the MPC, I was with
2000
Cork
Excel,
Triton. Say again.
2000 Excel, 2000.
I did all. I worked on all the MPCs. Well, maybe not all of them, but I worked with the 60, the 2000, the 3000, which was my favorite. And then I don't think I wasn't at Sony when any other ones came out after the 3000. But so yeah, I got involved with that. I was making beats on the Korg Triton, um, that type of stuff. But while I was at Sony, um, friend of mine had worked there too. He just heard me because I used to stack up like the equipment in the back of we worked in the mic locker, which was this little room in the basement where all the equipment was. And I worked in the overnight shift, so most of the people were gone from the studio. And after we finished our work that we were supposed to do, like we did inventory and stuff like that, or would do like assisting in sessions and stuff. And when people were gone, so it'd be like 3, 4 in the morning, I would just start stacking up equipment and plugging stuff up. And I was like, okay, I got to learn this MPC. I just wanted to know how it worked, you know what I mean? Because people were telling me you get a certain sound out of it. And I was like, I want that sound. So in the midst of doing all that, people heard my beats. They were like, yo, it's hot. This guy came to me once. He was like, hey, man, I want you to have this. And he gave me this disc, a CD, and it said Reason on it. And I was like, okay, what is this? He's like, it's a beat making program. I think you'd like it. Check it out. So I took it home, uploaded it to my computer, and I looked around. And I was like, oh, this looks familiar. I've seen some of this stuff, and it's sort of set up like how the studios are with like different gears stacked up on top of each other. And like I get it, but I couldn't find any sounds. I didn't know where to go with it. Um, and then after I left Sony Studios, I was just trying to figure out beats and stuff. And I said, let me open this program back up. I wanted to take my sound to the next level. And then I clicked the right button, and that was it. I was done. So Reason has been my thing.
Okay.
Like since then. I've used other DAWs. I've used other equipment. Like I've used Machine. I've used Fruity Loops. All of that. FL Studio. Reason. It's
Okay.
Reason for me. Mm-hmm.
That's what's up, man.
Yeah.
So you're in the digital realm right now.
Yeah. How about you?
For me, man, haven't really explored 2000 the DAWs as much, man. I'm a dinosaur, man. My thing is the 2000 Excel.
Okay.
I'm very, very comfortable in that. I like the workflow. Like the workflow, in it. The workflow is real straight up. Like if I'm getting bogged down with too many details, it's just not fun anymore. I just want to put it to the side. I don't have it right now because my internal hard drive, my zip drive, at the time was using SCSI at the time. They didn't have a card reader. It went bad. And and I took it and I brought it to Armin's, shout out to Armin's, by the way. And I didn't realize at the time that instead of me just changing or swapping out the internal hard drive for a multi-card reader,
okay,
I just said, hey, let me just swap it out for 2500, which has already had a built-in CD-ROM drive, already had outs in the back, and I was supposed to pay towards it, but eventually life just happened, man, and I just left it alone, man. So, I just kind of veered off from beat making for a little bit and just started getting into the videography realm and filmmaking and now podcasting is the latest journey.
Right.
So it's interesting.
Yeah.
So for me, man, when it's all said and done, how does Steve Wallace want to be remembered?
Yeah, legacy is super important to me. I want to be someone who inspired. You know what I mean? I want to be somebody that did something different. You know, brought something different to the world that wasn't there. You know, um, those are the main things for me. It's you know it's building that legacy, you know, artistic legacy. Like when I look back on like my musical heroes, um, they're all people that oftentimes are artists that people didn't get at first, you know, or that didn't get the the record deal or whatever, had to go independent and make it happen for themselves, and then later people come around. You know what I mean? Or the ones that live on that 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 borderline of you know genre, like often transitional composers in classical music are people that I really dig. So like very early on, like Beethoven was a big influence for me. Like I was digging on Beethoven when I was like 5 or 6, you know, and to the point where I took the B encyclopedia from my parents' front room and I just read about Beethoven every day. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Um, but he was a guy who transitioned classical music from like the Mozart classical music to like the Brahms, Verdi, Puccini era, which is like from the classical era to the romantic era. So he kind of has a little bit of both. So he and even to like for example his Ninth Symphony. People know "Ode to Joy" from Ninth Symphony. Even to this day, we sing it in church like all the time. And you know, oh, joyful, joyful, right? Joyful, joyful, Lord, we adore thee, right? That's Beethoven. That's actually Beethoven. And the special thing about that was that piece was the first time when voices were included in the symphony, which was dynamically like changed everything. Like symphonic works were like it was a 4 movement instrumental piece with the orchestra, and that's it. And Beethoven's Ninth Symphony at the end of his fourth movement, he brings in the whole chorus and like all these solo singers and all this stuff, and it's like it's super dynamic, you know. And just to think of somebody who thought like that, you know, and the fact that he dealt with his own deafness and stuff, his own challenges, his that's within itself an own thing to itself. But the fact that he thought, oh, why not have singers in this? Is you know, I that's what I'm all about. I love that. You know what I mean?
Um, I read that you had a Grammy nomination in about 2010. Is that true?
Is it Grammy? So I was in the runnings for Grammy nominations. I did not actually get the Grammy nomination.
Okay.
Thought it was. It was close.
Okay.
I don't think I sold enough records though. It was a song called "Be a Humanitarian," which actually was used as the theme song for the UN for their humanitarian month in 2010. It's this song. So the story behind it goes like this. Um, I, the earthquake in Haiti happened in 2000. Was that 2010?
That
No,
was
2009. Might have been '09. I don't recall. It was a really big earthquake that
around that
happened.
time. Yep.
And when it happened, it was all on the news, and I was watching it. I remember watching news about it, and I was like, man, somebody needs to make a song for this, man. Like We Are the World, like right now. And and then I felt like I was like, okay, do it, right? And then I said, I don't feel like doing that, man. I don't feel like it. So I went, I left, and like not even like I don't know, it must have been a couple hours later. I happened to work. At that time, I was working with a lot of Haitian artists, and there's a guy who I did a lot of co-writing with named Ricky DeRose. Ricky DeRose called me on the phone and said, "Listen, my brother, my brother." I said, "Oh, Ricky, what's up?" He said, "We have to do something. We have to do something for Haiti." I was like, oh. I was like, all right. I said, all right. You know, it was on my heart to do it anyway.
I love that accent, by the way, man. That's dope. Very authentic.
Yeah. So I was like, yeah, I guess I got to do it. You know, I just basically, you know, looked God in God's face, and I was like, "You funny guy, God." And so I just went. I was like, I'm in, I'm in. So I went. So Ricky brought me some lyrics and a melody, and then I made some music to go with his lyrics and melody, and then created a production around it, and he was like, you know, it'd be good to get, you know, a couple of our friends to sing along too. And I was like, oh, that would be great. And I had already planned. I was like, we need to do like We Are the World. You know what I mean? And so I just reached out to where I was, the level where I was on. I reached out to all of my, you know, indie soul friends that, and just at first I was like, they're not gonna respond. They're all busy. They're all on tours and stuff, right? I sent an email out, and everybody's getting back to me. Yes, I'll do it. Yes, I'll do it. Yes, I'll do it. Maybe I can. Yes, I can. And I was like, oh wow. So I just kept walking forward, man, and just kept walking forward. And we ended up making this piece called "Be a Humanitarian." Go listen to it on YouTube or whatever. Ricky's got it posted. I have it posted, and it's on iTunes and everything. Actually, it was the first time I worked with Eric Roberson, but I went like literally.
And
I
you
was
said Be a
renting.
Humanitarian. Who's the vocalist on it?
It's everybody. That's the thing. It's everybody. So I think the artist name is something like New York Soul All Stars or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's featuring. I'm gonna name a bunch of people you may know, you may not know them. Some of them are in Hal King, but Eric Roberson's in there.
Yeah.
Gordon Chambers is in there. Chester Gregory, Maya Azucena, Kelly Say, who used to sing with Incognito. Who else? And just like tons and tons and tons of other people like Abby Dobson. I can't name everybody. Darian Dean, who actually is in Hal King as well. Chandler. I can, and I sing in it too. Marlon Saunders. It's tons of people.
And you produced that?
Yeah, I produced it. I like really produced it.
Oh.
Like I rented cars to go to people's studios. Like drove into New Jersey and Philly and stuff like that to get like video footage and audio footage in people's studios and put it all together. And then and then had a day where a whole bunch of other people came in. So like SJ came in and like some other artists and stuff. Amma Watt, like just different people just came in and we had like a choral day. And then I recorded some vocals, and then I had a violinist. Queen Rose came in on the violin, and Monet was there, who helped me with casting for Hal King too. She played the flute, and she sang some vocals as well. Story James was there. I had a little children's choir at the end of the song. Bro, it was work, but it was worth it. And that song, so I got a call back from the guy who was managing me at the time. After we put it out, he was like, "Yeah, man, the Grammys are considering this song, bro." And I'm like, "Word?" I was like, "Okay, I wasn't shooting for that, but
right.
That's dope." So for a while, I was like, "Man, we're gonna be at the Grammys with this," but then we didn't get called to the Grammys for that. But we were heavy consideration though.
Well, I definitely check that song out. I encourage all our viewers to go check that out as well too, man. It sounds real dope.
Yeah.
What's next for Steve at this point in his career? I mean, what do you plan on doing next? What's on the horizon?
Yeah, so I have a ton of ideas. I mean, things that I've been planning for years. You know, some things that came up recently, but I think a lot more writing things such as Hal King. When COVID is over, definitely gets in some things on stage. You know, I had a couple of musicals I composed like right before COVID hit that were premiered, and I have some more things in the works. I have an adaptation of Animal Farm that I'm working on, George Orwell's book. I'm working on an adaptation of Alexandre Dumas' Count of Monte Cristo as well, which is like as a like hip hop opera, and
a hip opera.
Yeah, but it's actually opera singers, but it's actually hip hop beats though.
Dope. That's dope. I can't wait to hear something like that.
Yeah, bro. And see, here's the thing. People want this right now. They want it in the opera world. Like they really want this right now. And then like I think even people like in hip hop and R&B are
People in
getting
hip
super.
hop want to hear it. I do.
Yeah, yeah.
I really want to hear the music, something great, innovative, and refreshing happening in music right now.
I'm all about that. I got to bring something that's not there. So yeah, with the Counterminded Crystal, it's like I don't know anybody else that could. There's no arrogance in this. Please believe me. I don't know anybody else that could do it like me. I just telling you, because nobody knows hip hop like me and knows opera like me.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And that comes from the depths of my soul and with and it's just that it can't be. If there is, it's like one other person somewhere else, and like me and that person need to sit down and have some tea.
Well,
Because then,
let's have some tea, brother. Because we can go.
yeah,
I consider myself to really just. I'm a lover of hip hop as well too. So,
yeah. No, but yeah, definitely. Now I could find tons of people that love hip hop on a deep level and have been a part of it. You know what I'm saying? And I could find people that love opera on a deep level and been a part of it. But to find somebody that's in both,
yeah, that's
deep
difficult.
in the same way, and not in the way like, oh, that opera piece sounds dope, I want to use it in my beat, or oh, that hip hop song is really nice and I would like to incorporate. No, I'm talking about like I was in a hip hop group in college.
Areas, right?
Like I've been in the studio with Ghostface and you know what I'm saying, De La Soul, you know what I mean? But then at the same and like in a very authentic way there, and studied the craft, like sitting there listening to Ready to Die and be like, why is this a classic album? Listening to like the Purple Tape, the fact that I know it's called the Purple Tape, and you know
Right.
what I'm talking
Right,
about,
right.
right? That's what I'm saying, and then to go and be like, all right, Wagner Gesamtkunstwerke,
That's
why he
crazy.
called it that,
That's
and why he
crazy.
called it that, why that's important, why Die Entführung aus dem Serail by Mozart was so revolutionary for its time. Why Don Giovanni by Mozart was so revolutionary. Like I know this stuff. Like the Florentine Camerata, back in Italy in 1490, whatever, and how they came up with the idea for opera to begin with. Like I'm deep and look, I've sung 15 opera roles, you know what I mean? But not and look, and again, I'm not saying this to say that it's a big deal that I've done that stuff. But what is a big deal to me is the fact that I love and respect both in a very, very equal way. And so I think God has placed me in a position where I can incorporate both of those things in one place
Combine it.
in an authentic way that doesn't feel fake to either side, which is super, super essential.
And you said the word authentic.
Yes. Yeah, it can't be fake, because if you come in and like I was just talking to my wife about this earlier, it's probably right while I was late coming for this meeting. We were talking about Andrea Bocelli, right? Andrea Bocelli is an Italian singer that is known for singing operatic-ish, right? And has sung some opera arias, sung some Italian pop songs. Most people that don't really know opera think he's an opera singer, right? But like if you really know opera, you're like, I don't think he could really be an opera singer because of, no diss to his talent. He's talented, but he's not really an opera singer per se. And so like real opera heads kind of they get that stuff. But like on the flip side, to have I don't know, I want to get, to be able to say something like Jay Dilla is the best producer in hip hop. You know what I'm saying? And to understand that and know that, to be able to talk about how Dilla changed D'Angelo and influenced every genre of music,
and probably one of the main innovators for neo soul or
oh yeah,
foundation.
hands down.
But Janet Jackson's "Don't It All Seem to Go,"
Oh, you know that story, right? You know the story.
I know
about
that story.
Okay. So
Trackmasters, they robbed them.
that wasn't Trackmasters. That was Jimmy Jam with Terry Lewis.
Yeah, but the story behind that was he was, the same people that were managing the UMA, who he was working for, would keep taking them. they were also managing track masters as well too.
Oh, okay.
I
Interesting.
mean, that's a separate story, but
Okay.
that's how eventually, it led to eventually him just leaving the Uma altogether.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
well, we gotta talk about that offline.
that's a whole nother show, bro.
Yeah. Because I'm a Dilla aficionado, but that part I don't think I knew that part.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, but anyway, I mean, I it's and God put it on me, put the responsibility on me to be like, what if you want to be, what are you gonna do with what I've given you? You know what I'm saying? To whom much is given, much is required, right?
Wow.
Like you have these experiences, and that's cool and all of that. But what are you gonna do to try to change the world with that?
Yeah.
How are you gonna be the light and salt in this world with that information?
Amazing.
Now what? Yeah. So the whole thing was for me is like, okay, this is something I can do that nobody else that I know of or that I've heard of can do in this really authentic way. And so that's where I'm at right now. And I feel like, I've even interacted with some people at some opera companies that I won't name, some big opera companies that are working on trying to bring in hip hop and Black culture in a way that would be, but it's not, they don't get the Black experience. Like they don't get hip hop. You know what I mean? They don't get hip hop. I've seen it done a little bit, like when you have Miguel Atwood Ferguson. I got to shout out to him. Do you know who that is?
No.
If you're a Dilla head, you're gonna love Miguel Atwood Ferguson because maybe a year or two after Dilla died, he did what's called a suite to Ma Dukes. Okay. So he took Dilla beats and orchestrated them. He's like a jazz dude. He's a jazz and plays violin and stuff. So he orchestrated Dilla beats into this suite, and then like had Common come out and Talib Kweli and stuff like it. So look it up. Suite for My Dukes is really, really, really dope. And then we've seen, like, I actually was in the audience when Jay-Z did his Reasonable Doubt 10-year whatever
tribute
celebration or whatever, and they did the whole thing with the orchestra, which was really dope. You know what I mean? So it's there. People know it's a possibility, but I'm right now I feel like, and Nas did it too. It was on PBS, really dope. He did Illmatic with the orchestra. It might have been 20-year celebration.
Yeah, I saw that. That was on
Yeah.
PBS, I believe.
It was dope. It was dope. And so the thing is, most of the stuff was like looking back at something. It's like playing homage to something. And I think now is the time where people need or are in the place where it's bubbling right now. And a lot of people are talking about creating new things like this that is classical on scale, but also is very relevant to hip hop culture. You know what I mean?
Brother, you're doing some amazing work. I'm
Thanks.
really in awe of what it is that you're doing right now, because it's not too many people that are filling that gap in our generation right now. For people to be like what you're saying is just filling that space and being there to be in between such two awesome, enormous worlds between hip hop and R&B and opera, and bringing those worlds together, is pretty much fulfilling the Great Commission as we speak. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Just doing that, and just you're bringing people together and showing the beauty in that. So I think that's just amazing. That you're continuing to do this good work. I want to. What would you say to encourage anyone who is pursuing, music, entertainment, their dreams, just their dream in general? What would you say to encourage that person?
To encourage them, you got to really know yourself. You got to be like, you got to be super stubborn, but you also have to be very flexible equally. You know what I'm saying? Which is really, really tough to do. Because you got to be really clear on, like, I'm doing this, do it or die trying. And through the tears and through like all those times, it's like, this is not, I give up. or what's my value. I was on a Zoom with a guy the other night, really talented composer, in a workshop that I'm a part of, and he's like, I've been sitting here thinking like, what's my value? I don't know what my value is in the world. And I know that feeling because I've felt the same thing. And I know almost if you're a real artist, anybody that's a real artist has felt the way at some point, especially if you've put so much time and dedication into your craft and you get to a point where you're like, is anything happening? Is anybody here? Hello world. Hi.
Right.
Is anybody hearing me out there? And you wonder like, what's the value? But to have that tenacity, but also the creative flexibility, because I have evolved a variety of different ways in my career, and if I didn't have my mind slightly open, I'm a bit stubborn. If I had my mind like slightly open, I wouldn't have the versatility I have today. So when things fall in front of you, please investigate it as it's before you. It's really important. But having a vision is super important, and something a vision that is bigger than yourself. A lot of times I find artists that are out to do things just for like ego, and that's not going to take you very far. You need to have a purpose. Well, you need to have a calling that connects to a purpose that's bigger than just like you and your, I could sing, mama, and yeah, so it's got to be something else.
You said it best, is calling to a purpose, because I love what you're doing for the fact that you're showing people that there's so many different looks to success. Success doesn't always have to be a superstar on TV, and it's in the spotlight and you're on the mic and you have to be the rapper. You have to be the singer. You have to be the beat maker that everybody knows. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
there's so many different looks to it. So artists like yourself that are doing what you're doing, it gives hope and it sets a light on the path so people can follow that and say, hey, there is another way.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things about that too, I get that from studying though, because I study the greats and I look at them, the people that we see as the greats in arts, and we go back and like really look at them. So now we look at Vincent van Gogh and we're like, oh wow, this is so amazing. What was he thinking about when he painted this? And this dude was cutting his ear off and like depressed, you know what I mean? Or like Mozart died and no one was at his funeral, bro. Nobody, you know what I mean? So like, what were people actually doing? Like Franz Schubert used to go by Beethoven's house and was hoping that he would open the door one day, and he never met him, but people sing Ave Maria all the time now, you know what I mean? And there's millions and millions and millions of stories like that about these artists. Not just the fact that even Jay Dilla to a degree, you know what I mean? Like you look at people that have had this impact. Like you have to think about, okay, why are you doing what you're doing? There's plenty of successful artists throughout the history that have not had impact. So if in the arts you want is about leaving a legacy, then you have to define for yourself what success is for you, Right. And when that's clear, then it's like, okay, if success is for me that I get to actually perform for people and people appreciate it, then you've done it. Like you can make your choices to attain that, as opposed to seeing somebody else's success and being like, I want to be like them. I don't know if that makes sense. Yeah.
Definitely answers it, man. Listen, I want to thank you for being on this platform, man. Is there anything that you want to say before we leave out?
Yeah, sure.
Actually, before you even say that, y'all
Sure.
go out and watch that Hal King go. Download it, buy it, whatever you got to do to support that movie, please support this movie. It's a great film. It's definitely opened up my my taste buds, my palate to opera, and maybe even wanted to study more about that. You know what I'm saying? So that's what it's done for me personally. But I urge you guys to go out. Hal King is on the Amazon Prime Video right now. That's where you can get it. I'll let you take it from there if you have anything.
Yeah. Now that was it. That's kind of that was kind of it. I was like, Hal King is like just on the forefront of my mind right now. For people that are not into opera, this is for you, really. You know what I mean? It's an R&B opera. It's when you experience it, it doesn't feel like opera, but then you realize that it is by the structure and stuff, and the way it's presented. It feels very current. It's like the music of today. You know what I mean? And I think, and the other thing is that it bridges the gap, just as we've talked about, like kind of my mission statement between the classical conductors and people in classical music too, like the everyday folks that just like a good story and want to hear some good music that feels relevant. Other thing that's really important, like definitely want people to go see it, but you got to share, because this is an indie film, and if it's not shared, like I see people when they see a new movie or whatever, they go on social media and they shout it out like, "Oh, this is the best movie I ever saw. Everyone needs to go see this." And sometimes with indie films, that doesn't happen as often, but it happens with bigger films. So I need people to go out there and be like, if you were moved by it, you were touched by it, go on social media and tell you, even just telling people about it that live next door to you. It's like, man, I just saw this movie. I'd never seen anything like it before. You got to check this out. So that does wonders, not just for me, because it's boosting me. What it does, it allows a platform for artists, me and other artists, to be able to create other interesting things that represent our culture in three-dimensional ways, and give us the opportunity to take it to the next level. For me and for other artists that want to be innovative, they want to bring something new to culture.
All right, bro. Thanks again.
Yeah, man.
Definitely we'll be having you back on the show in the future. So many different levels, man. I connect with another fellow hip hop junkie,
Yes,
myself.
Yes,
you know what I'm saying? So yeah, that's it. Thank you guys for tuning in. Stay tuned for the next time.